former NFL GM, currently NFL insider, and working on finding the new man for the job for the New York Jets. He joins us right now on Theoretically Speaking on the Baptist Health Hotline. Mike T., how are you doing this Tuesday, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. I hear you're coming to us from the West Coast, man. You out in California. You out there kicking it. Is it because you want to get just a little bit better weather than New York?
Yeah, I'm at the University of Washington, guys. It's one of the more beautiful campuses in the country. I don't know if you guys have been here, but you should watch a game here. Beautiful stadium, beautiful view of the lake. Highly recommend it.
Okay, and I won't say anything further. I don't want to intrude on any proceedings, but University of Washington does not have any football games going on right now, nor do they necessarily have any other major events. So I wonder what Mike T's doing there. We'll do some investigating.
Doesn't the University of Washington have the next UNC head football coach in a to-be-determined amount of time? I don't know.
There is a Steve B over there. Mike T, are you on the Belichick recruiting tour?
No, I'm not. No, we're talking to our friends at University of Washington.
Okay, friends. I'm sorry. I had to ask. I wouldn't be a journalist if I didn't ask, Mike T. Can I ask you this question? Coming off of Monday Night Football last night, I watched Jamar Chase go off for 14 catches, 177 yards, and just have his way with that Cowboys defense, 2 touchdowns, including the Sealer, and the Bengals win. And the only thing I can think is, that's really nice. Yeah, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, great tandem. But the Bengals made a huge blunder by not extending that guy this past offseason when it would have been cheaper. Do you feel like there is a situation in which the Bengals might have to move off of Jamar Chase because now he might be getting a little bit too expensive for their taste?
Yeah, no, it's a great conversation listening to you guys. You can't let him leave. Like, when you have somebody that good, that young, that productive, you hit on a pick like that, guys, he has to be a Bengal. And by the way, I would take that a step further. So does Higgins. And I know that's a lot of money to have as skill players, but gosh, when they're rolling guys, they are hard to beat. To have 2 corners of their size to defend those 2 receivers is really, really hard. So, I do think they should have signed, Chase sooner. They didn't, but you can't let them leave.
I mean, but you say they're hard to beat, but they're 5-8. And they've had these guys most of the season. I think my only problem with this whole Joe Burrow and Bengals experience right now is it feels like if Joe Burrow is only going to be the 4th best quarterback in this conference, and if they're going to have to pay 2 receivers $30+ million, it doesn't feel like a winning formula in a conference full of quarterbacks that can do more with less.
Right. Now, the difference between winning and losing, that's a fair point, though. It's so small. You go back to opening day, Mike Gesicki stumble against New England, the 4th down PI against Kansas City. Look, they were lucky to win last night, or he tries to touch the fumble, the tip punt. But I don't know. When you have a great young nucleus of offensive stars like they do, I'm just hard for us to think you're better off by breaking that up.
I agree with you. And again, Mike Tannenbaum joining us here on Theoretically Speaking on ESPN 106.3 on a Tuesday. I agree that Jamar Chase is one of those guys you don't want to see leave your franchise. He's one of those guys that is truly generational. I just don't know. They have so many holes on defense and elsewhere outside of quarterback and receiver. You got a guy like Andres Yoshevich who's come in and shown himself to be a good red zone threat and whatnot. I just don't know if this team are good. Look at the rest of the AFC, Mike T. The Steelers, the Bills, the Texans, the Chiefs, the Dolphins, the Chargers, the Broncos. The Bengals there's a good chance they don't make the playoffs next year if they run this thing back.
Well, I mean, look, part of it's their health. Dax Hill, DJ Turner, those guys are on IR, so I do think they can get better. Look, they got to add some young talent on the defense. They're going to have to figure out a way to make Trey Hendrickson happy, who's having an unbelievable year. You can't have them all, but, to me, point scorers, pass rushers, they don't leave the building.
Mike, you being in that GM seat in the past, how permissible is that degree of variance? But like you said, it's so close between winning and losing. Sometimes you have all the right tools, you just don't win the one-score games. How can a coach I don't know, just explain that to a GM, and is it usually understood that things happen? Believe happen sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you want to have a long-term view, understand there are going to be bumps in the road, a lot of eyeballs on NFL teams. But, yeah, I just think when you look at it, it's a fair question from a silver standpoint. I think this Bengal team's closer to competing than to blowing it up. And, again, if you just said, hey, Burrow, Higgins, and Chase, like, I'm not so sure there's a lot of skill player groups that would take over him. You know, maybe Detroit is one, but beyond that, not sure how many others I would, guys.
You might be right. You might be right. And we'll see what the Bengals are able to do going forward. The real answer to all is they definitely aren't making the playoffs this year, and they're going to have to make some serious adjustments. And maybe it's coming back from injury from some of these players to be able to compete for the playoff spot next year as well, because that division is also going to be unrelenting. Like, I don't expect the Browns to just roll out and be as bad as they were this past year as well. So we'll see. Mike T, can we talk a little bit about this Bill Belichick thing? When I first saw him to UNC, I thought it was like, you know, smoke and mirrors. I thought it was him creating leverage for that next NFL job. The more I think about it, though, like, if you had a son getting ready to go play college football and Bill Belichick was a college football coach right there in Chapel Hill, is there any other college coach in the nation you would want to trust your son with more?
Look, he's a great coach by all matters, and I do think he would be great in high school, college, or the NFL. And I think he probably just has to decide, like, you know, am I comfortable, you know, going out and recruiting and then re-recruiting your own because of the portal. There's a lot more that goes into it. But I agree, like, he could certainly relate to kids. And look, I think at the end of the day, players want to get better, and being around somebody of his, you know, accomplishments, they're starting to get better around him. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
I like the idea of him doing that. I also think it would do so much more for the College of North Carolina. And it could do a lot for his legacy as he's able to impact so many of the young minds and young men across the nation if he goes to North Carolina like that.
Mike, when I saw that news roll on my feed, I didn't quite understand it immediately, but Bill Belichick, in my mind, is one of the few people in sports today where they can make a decision, and I'll be like, you know what, he probably knows better. If I don't get it, that's my fault. Are there any other people like that in sports to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like the beyond reproach guys.
Yeah.
You know, Andy Reid, Mike Tomlin. Not many. I mean, not many at all. There's, you know, you would say Pat Riley maybe.
Pat Riley, what do you think about this whole Jimmy Butler potentially being moved on from the Heat thing? I mean, I know you dabble in the NBA as well. You think it's time that the Heat part ways?
Well, I'd say this. You know, like, I'd rather trade a player too soon than too late. You know.
Yeah.
So he's still a great player, but if you think you have a better chance of doing that now versus 2 years, you do it now.
I do think two things I want to say about that. Number one, it might be that perfect timing. It might not be too late or too early. It might be the perfect time to strike to move on Jimmy Butler. Number two, and again, I took this with a very heavy weight. When Dwayne Wade had his speech outside of his statue, it was 15 minutes long. He mentioned a lot of names. The only current player of the Miami Heat he did mention, especially in the aura of having maybe a statue to come, was Bam Adebayo. There was zero mention of Jimmy Butler, and that's his Marquette brother. I think there's some fire where that smoke is coming out of Miami. Mike T, yeah, right. It's kind of crazy. Mike T, though, I'm curious. One last thing. What do you think is 14 weeks into the NFL season? Now that we have that many data points, we know where teams are. What do you think was the biggest mistake of the offseason? Because I do believe it was the Bengals not extending Jamar Chase, mainly because of what it means to the future of their team, not this current season. What do you think was the biggest front office mistake this past offseason?
Yeah, that one's easy for me. I first guessed, not second guessed this one. Saquon Barkley. I mean, just look. You know, the Eagles on the precipice of maybe being the best team in the NFC, and I'm not saying the Giants are contenders before. They're a much better football team with them there, and when you have a defense that's struggling like theirs is, Saquon Barkley makes your defense better. Last time I checked, Jalen Hurts has like 35% of his passing yards coming off of play action. That's all because of the presence of Saquon Barkley.